So, folks, welcome to another week of game design. Today, we'll be talking about level design. If you happen to be in my narrative design class, you will be pleased to hear that we will also be doing practice to help you complete your work in that course. So that's going to be important. And as you do have to create game levels in that course in narrative design. We will have to do some level design in game design, but that will be in assignment 4. Yeah, uh, part 3 of your GDD. Um, Speaking of GDD, I would like to introduce you guys to assignment 3, our Ludo narrative blueprint. So this is part 2 of your GDD project. Okay, so you hopefully are almost finished part 1 because we are going to look at your paper prototypes in class. We need to see what you've got. Um, okay, that's important. Now, part 2 should be fairly simple, but it involves a few steps. Okay, so you're going to map out your game events over time uh, visually and map it on an engagement curve as well. So you're going to plan for that Freytag's pyramid, okay? And you're just gonna work on your existing GDD, and this one won't have a presentation, so this one should be a little simpler in a way. You'll be doing a little bit of legwork for just building a new section of your GDD, though. This is due November 24th. It will absolutely 0% never be extended. This is the deadline, and it has to be this way. That's it, okay? So make it happen. Make sure you have internal deadlines within your team to make sure developers on your team finish their work well ahead of this deadline so you can actually put it together, okay? And decide what to do with it. We will. It's mentioned in here. Don't worry. The Freytag's pyramid. So let's look at this. Uh, any group 2 to 8, whatever. Use the same groups as your. It should be the same groups as your assignment 2. Okay. So you're going to add a new section to your GDD called Ludo Narrative Blueprint. So I'm looking for that. That you have it all in this one particular section. Okay. If you don't have a GD, make one. Uh, create diagrams for this Ludo narrative plot structure and a blueprint for your game. So we'll talk about what that means, but before that, do any of you folks remember what it means if I say Ludo narrative? What is a Ludo narrative? What is a Ludo narrative? Are we drawing a blank on that word? So this is a new. Yeah, this is an. Yeah, okay. Ludo narrative specifically is the intersection of gameplay and storytelling. What gameplay says about story, or what story the gameplay tells. Because the arrangement of platforms, the options that you have as a player character, what you're allowed to do and you're not allowed to do, whether or not you are advantaged in a certain situation or disadvantaged, all of these help to tell your story if you pay attention to it. If you pay attention, it will do this. Matching the gameplay with what's supposed to be going on in your story is definitely a big part of creating a Ludo narrative as well. Okay, but whether or not you make one, there's going to be something that your gameplay says that uh, may or may not be what you're intending to be received. Um, your gameplay itself will do this as well, right? It's not just the text that you have in your game, and in fact, you have very little space for text. So the Ludo narrative is going to be where most of your game is. Okay, so you're going to outline major narrative events, plot points in your game. You're going to outline character arcs, how maybe the story arcs and character arcs are related to your major events. Okay, what are the points that open up these arcs and where do they close and things like that. Um, outline those story arcs and how do they begin, how do they end. Make sure you include basic gameplay because this is also part of your Ludo narrative. If your player is learning to play the game, then how are you matching this with the player character who presumably doesn't know how to do anything either because your player doesn't know how to do anything. They're learning. So you need to include stuff like this. Um, graph the excitement curve over time. Graph that engagement level. With peaks and valleys, you need to have contrast. You need to have moments that are very intense, and you need to have moments that are a little bit more calm. So show that you have an understanding of how you're going to design having that emotional roller coaster built into your game. Show that it has a good structure for this rising tension and climax and resolution and maybe over multiple points in the game with this Freytag's pyramid idea. So you don't just pretend to create it. You need your events to clearly show that they are building tension as well, right? You could build tension in a few different ways, opening up a bunch of plot points, a bunch of story arcs without resolving them. That increases tension, right? Having a parallel action, a bunch of things happening at the same time that are not resolving, that creates tension. I mean, there's more unanswered questions, more tension. Like when you have lots of assignments that are started, but none that are finished, that is when you are more stressed. When you have finished your assignments, you are less stressed. Simple as that. You're going to do that for players. Um, take into consideration room for breaks, build ups, and calm periods, stuff like that, right? You're going to create scene prompts. So this is going to be a major part of your assignment. Each person on your team is going to have a prompt they are responsible for. One detailed prompt for each team member. So you will develop further, in the next steps. Okay, um, it will it will inform level designs and things like that in the future. That's the idea. Okay, so what do I mean by prompts? They're going to be like guidelines. They're going to be uh, points where you'll fill in the details. But what you need to have is you need to have a clear definition on the goal of each scene, of each part of the game. Um, what happens at what is required for it to begin, and what is guaranteed after it ends. And when I say scene here, I just mean part of the game, not Unity scene file or something like that. I just mean parts of your game. So these could all be in one scene, Unity scene. There's one big file, and then these are just different parts of that whole game that is all in one scene. Um, that's reasonable as well. I don't care how you structure it technically here. So when I say scene, I just mean a part of the game. Okay. But everybody is responsible for creating this outline for part of the game. Um, you're going to color code it. It's going to look something like this. So there's going to be one of these prompts for each team member at least. And then you're going to link these up on your timeline so that you kind of have an idea of the whole plot of the entire game, including mechanics. So you see this is color coded in a way where it's kind of based on the different things that certain roles in your team might have to look at. So, for example, your programmers will need to look at the mechanics section and key items. Your writers will need to look at characters, lore, okay? Your artists will need to look at location, character. They might have certain things they're going to pay attention to. Okay, so having these color coding will help with basically having your different departments be able to pay attention to certain parts of your game. This is borrowed from film production. This is sometimes done. You just color code like different areas of your production plan of your script, so that people can pay attention to their role. You know, if you're sound, then you're going to pay attention to the sound area. Um, anyway, you can add or edit these as required. Like you can change it depending on your team structure. If you're, I want you to make sure that this is something that is useful for you, useful to help you build tasks out of each one of these. Right? When you see this becomes a task. Somebody has to make this. When you see this is a task. Someone has to make this. You need to make sure that you write it in such a way that it's really easy and obvious how you can translate this into very specific requirements for a task that you can put on your team's to-do list and have somebody pick it up and have somebody actually complete the damn thing. That also means making it so that it's kind of something that each person could do as their job, right? Um, so at the end of the day, you're going to end up with a just a GDD. Just you're going to upload the GDD. You don't need a presentation for this assignment. No presentation required. Just give me the GDD, okay? So hopefully we'll be able to finish that in time. Make sure that you use the best methods of communication possible. So if it would be better drawn out as a diagram, make it a diagram. If it would be better as a graph, make it a graph. If it would be better as a series of pictures as in a storyboard, make it that. If it's best actually as a combination of all those things, which it probably is, make it that. So you have a timeline, you have a graph showing your excitement curve over time, and then you pick out points in those graphs and you mark out that each one is this scene A, this is scene B, this is scene C, and then you put storyboard pictures for each one, right? Organize it in the best way possible for your game. I'm not going to force you to do it any particular way, but I'm going to strongly recommend a certain types of methods that include the visuals, that include the graph, and that include mapping out where your scene prompts are. Um, so what I would do is I would have all these scene prompts, and then I would have a graph, and I would have points on the graph that correspond to scene prompts. Let me show you guys an example. Something kind of like that. In this case, I've used just like Google Sheets. It's the same thing as Microsoft Excel. Okay, and I've mapped out this kind of blueprint here. So first of all, there's a storyboard, and then I cut up the storyboard and place the storyboard over time on multiple different axes of what this gameplay experience is supposed to be like. This is a multiplayer game, so it's not the same with the plot structure, but it does have some idea of what is going on for our players emotionally, and you'll see there's a chart of this expected emotional response as well, of where this will map out over time. Oh, I happen to scale this wrong. Hang on a sec. What happened here? What happened to the scale of this thing? Why is it all... Why is it too... Why is it so long? It's supposed to go like that. No, sorry. Like that. There we go. So over time, we have the beginning, and each one of these has a duration because we're plotting out the expected time it will take to complete this game. It will vary, right? It might be 5 to 10 minutes or something like that, but we're mapping out how long each of these moments should be. And this is a blueprint that helps us build a game and then compare it to the blueprint and say, hey, did it turn out like this? Right? Is this too long? Is this too short? That kind of thing. All right. So, first minute of the game, you put in this screen where players have to select a team. Okay, what's going on? You're in the dark just as much as players are gonna be in the dark. They'll click a bunch of buttons. Okay, uh, I expect mild confusion from the players emotionally. They don't get exactly what they're doing yet, but then they'll start figuring some things out. So what happens here? Players pick teams. They set loadouts. They customize their battle robots. Okay, you're gonna have battle robots. They're gonna make game plans here. Okay, cool. What is fun? It's more cognitive. It's more not action. They're uh, coming up with strategies. They're they're coming up with builds for their battle robot. Okay, what should they be saying? You need to write stuff like this as well. What should players be saying? And when you do playtests, you can see, hey, are they, how are they feeling based on what kind of things are they saying? What kind of emotions are they having? Is this hitting the target? Okay. So a player might say, okay, I don't know what I pick. I'll just go with the default, and then I want to make it my own, so I'm going to customize like one part of this robot, or something like that. Players are often will often think in this way. Okay. Then, uh, for a quarter of a minute or like 15 seconds, there's the game enters the battle scene. Okay, so players are just watching, and there should be some increase in excitement. A battle is about to happen. So this is where I'm expecting we're having a rising action. Okay. Then early game begins. Maybe let's say this is over the course of a minute. There's a whole bunch of buildings on the ground. We're seeing that there's buildings. We're seeing we can shoot our weapons. There's particle effects and stuff like that. We can destroy buildings. But since there's a lot of buildings in the way, there's a lot of cover, so players aren't taking that much damage. They're supposed to fight each other, but they're not taking that much damage yet because there's a bunch of buildings in the way. But the buildings are starting to get blown up, and players are seeing those mechanics happen. And they're coming up with new strategies like, okay, let's shoot down a bunch of these buildings, so let's clear this space so that now the enemy doesn't have any cover left. Okay. Okay, moving on. Another mid-game phase. Then we get to late game, and uh, the one of the players on one team explodes. Their robot explodes, and it actually causes the other player to also explode because they're standing next to each other. So then we're thinking like, okay, these are the kinds of things they're thinking. Great, we're having our climax here where it's the a lot of stuff is happening, a lot of things are blowing up, a lot of visual effects, whatever, and there's a moment after the match ends. One team has lost, but the game does not end just yet. It gives us a moment so that the players can appreciate what just happened, and uh, the victors are basking in the glory of their victory, and they feel like they're really cool, and the losers are thinking, what did I do wrong and what can I do better? Okay, so that those are just pieces of the cut up storyboard. There's a bit of a longer storyboard, here, um, but this is the idea. You want to map out events of your game over time. So like each one of these is something that you're gonna want to be able to kind of check against what you actually have built and see if you're hitting your mark. All right. Um, you can check out the tips here. Consider game design material and also narrative design material if you're doing this. Consider using diagramming tools. Don't just draw on paper. It's not gonna be great. If you do draw on paper, you're gonna have to put a lot of effort to making it actually look good and reasonable, and scanning it so that it doesn't look like crap. It needs to be professional, and it also needs to be something that you can modify, because this is supposed to be a living document. Unless you can make it out of a bunch of cut up pieces of paper, then you can modify it. But if you're just doing it as one big sketch, it is not modifiable. It is not professional. The worst thing is actually that it's not modifiable. It's not that it looks bad. The problem is that you can't easily reconfigure it to change your game design. So I recommend using something like this. I will link it here in the chat. I love using this thing, okay, for diagrams. You need a Google account, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. You need to use a Google account to log into it. So I use it for all kinds of things. Like I use it for uh, figuring out plans for programming, um, or trying to figure out how I'm going to organize things, stuff like that. It's really nice. And one of the great features of this app is that it's multiplayer, so you can have a whole bunch of people on your team on the same document at the same time, editing at the same time. So it's really helpful that way. Yes, so I do like it. All right. I don't recommend using Photoshop for the whole thing either. You can use Photoshop for individual events or something like that, but it's a little harder to edit, especially if you want multiple people. So that's why I recommend something like this. Um, Regardless, whatever you do, stay on scope. Don't give me a big story that is like an hour long or anything like that. It's not going to help. I want you to be detailed down to the button presses you're going to have to teach your player. If you guys were in my narrative design class yesterday, then we played Bastion. And when we played Bastion, I asked you guys to count everything you have to put in, right? Everything that is put in the game. Every one of those things is something you're going to have to write down as like a detail that you need to put in, basically, or something you're going to have to make, right? If you saw that there were 300 sprites, you're going to have to make 300 sprites. So try and make it so that it's reasonable scope for you. Okay? Include basic mechanics and things like that. Make it so that it's very easy to turn what you've written into tasks where it's like, okay, Joss, go complete this scene. And Joss wouldn't have to ask what this means. Joss would be able to just make it. Uh, you want that level of detail. Okay, the more detail you've got, the better. Uh, if you give me very broad general statements, or it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this other way, we're not sure yet, that's not helpful. I need you to be specific. Pick something. Doesn't matter if you're not sure if it should change or not. Just pick something for it to be and then describe it as such. Do not say we're going to have a heartfelt moment. Explain what is the heartfelt moment, like what happens in the dialogue, right? Um, in this, you don't need to have every piece of dialogue, but you need to know what is going to happen plot wise so that you can fill those in, right? So that you can work on it at the same time. With these prompts, in theory, that would mean that you could have multiple people working on filling out different parts of the game in parallel. And since they know what happens here, everyone can see the prompts. Okay, my scene that I'm working on is after the player learns to cast Fireball. So in my scene, in my part of the game, the part of the game level that I'm responsible for, I'm going to test the player on using Fireball. So I'm going to give them a lot of situations where Fireball is very useful. And I'm going to give them a lot of situations where they'll have to use all of their mana and then replenish that mana. Okay, I'm going to give them situations where they can apply burn to bad guys, and it'll be very effective. Or they could see the places where it's not effective, where the burn will potentially hurt the player because they'll touch a burning enemy, or they'll potentially hurt civilians because you'll set a village on fire or something like that. Okay, uh, just whatever it is that is specific to your game and your game mechanics. Okay. This is equivalent to basically what you need to do when when you write an essay, right? You when you have done your research, when you know what you want to write in general, what's the first thing that you guys do? What's the first thing you should do when you need to write an essay? When you've done the research, you need to actually start putting pen to paper. When you need to when you need to start typing, first thing you do then. Do you just start typing the intro? Do you just start typing the conclusion? Do you start typing the bibliography? What do you do? Form a thesis from the subject matter? Okay. Yeah. So then what do you write first? Do you write the thesis first? Maybe you could, but that should be one sentence. The introduction? No, guys. That's not how you do it. No. No, guys. You don't just. Okay. You need to outline it first. Then you can adjust your outline. You outline it and you start filling in the details of that outline. So you do your research, you form your hypothesis, then when it's time to start writing, you outline. So you decide what you kind of you put down a structure with what you want to get across. You might have headers for, okay, this is where my intro is going to be. This is where I'm going to give context for uh, for the topic that I'm working on, right? So you might say that you might have that you're going to have an abstract, an intro, a conclusion. You know, you might have body. Um, so you might write that this is kind of the rough structure of your thing, and then you might fill in the details. Okay, inside your intro, you're going to have your um, oh, I don't know why it's hypothesis. There we go. Hypothesis is from when you're doing research. You have an idea, a thing that you want to prove true or false. It's not the same thing exactly as a thesis. A hypothesis is you have this thing you want to prove true or false, and then basically you spend your time proving if it's true or false. Uh, and your conclusion is whether or not you can uh, you can say, okay, this is true or this is false. So then after you've created your outline, you go back and you edit that, right? And you build it further. Um, Maybe you add another body section, or you put that as part of your conclusion. You know, you edit inside these sections, but you kind of know what general purpose each of these is solving first. Only then, after you do all of that stuff, then you go back and then you can review it a second time, right? Um, the abstract and the intro actually are the kinds of things that you generally should write last. Um, you might write some of the intro, like some of the context and stuff like that, maybe. Abstract is always written last. If you don't know what an abstract is, that's like a little summary, a summary of your work, and then you write that last. Okay, so this is what we're doing, right? We're building a structure, and then what it means is it gives us room for every one of our developers to build within that structure. It's like you give everyone their little plot of land, and then as long as you make sure that they connect properly, the puzzle pieces have the right connecting points, then everyone can work on them individually. All right, so that's what that is. Any questions about assignment 3? It's available on Blackboard. Deadline's there. Assignment 4 after assignment 3 is going to be level design. Just so you guys know, it's going to be level design. So you're going to draw out some levels. You won't have to have them in Unity, but you're going to be designing at least. You'll be doing part of it. Okay, so let's have our little lecture here. Let's talk about the process when creating level designs. Okay, this is going to connect with your Ludo narrative as well. You're going to connect this with, areas are going to be connected with scenes. You might have multiple scenes happening in one game level or something like that. That's fine. Um, just because just because the thing says you should have one scene per team member doesn't mean you need to have like 8 Unity scenes. That's not what I mean. Okay, you can have multiple in a level. Anyway, let's talk about level design. So the process goes something like this. And by the way, this recommended reading, very good, very cool, made by industry pros. It's just like a big compendium of different of level design um, tips, tricks, processes, all sorts of things to think about. Definitely look at this. It's really cool. There's a lot of stuff here about shooter games. Yeah, a lot of stuff about shooter games because the and a lot of stuff about like third-person adventure games because developers are AAA developers from the U.S. and the people who wrote this AAA from U.S. and AAA in the U.S. is very often shooter or third-person action adventure. Cool stuff to look at though. Content here, a lot of the content here comes from that. So the process goes like this. First, you need to come up with your premise. So that's kind of like coming up with your thesis or your subject matter. What is the point of this game level? What is the high level vision for what this game level is supposed to be about? So then you go into sketches, which doesn't necessarily mean drawing on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, but exploring possibilities, different ideas. Then gray box, which is a little bit more time consuming and involves actually building out a game level that you can test and then iterate upon. Okay, so after you've kind of done a few different explorations of different ideas, then you actually prototype one of them and you build it out so that you can test it. And this will take the longest amount of time, actually. Gray box, you should spend the most time, and you should try and get there as soon as possible and spend a lot of time in there, where you're going to iterate on the gameplay, iterate on the game level, things like that. Then you can finally move to having good looking art. So here is sketch, left side is sketch, middle is gray box, here is implementation of art. So this is actually making it look nice. When coming up with your premise and concept, this may depend on what kind of team you are. In a story-driven game, that might be about the plot ideas that you need to get across in this game level. Is there like a major story reveal here? Are there new narrative elements being opened up, like new plot lines being opened up, stuff like that. On the gameplay side, maybe it's a match 3, and then what you're really talking about in terms of concept here is that you want this level to feature a lot of uh, ice blocks. This new mechanic that you're introducing in for this level, ice blocks, or you might have different ideas about what the concept might be that you want to make it this level a really calm level. You want it to be a little bit easier, or you want it to be very intense, or you want it to start out very simple and then get really intense really quickly, along with story elements that start to build on top of each other. You might have different ideas for this. Maybe you want the concept of this level to be all about the fireball mechanic that you are teaching the player, or you want this to be thematically all about light and darkness. Whatever the concept is that you want to explore. Come up with restrictions, things you definitely need to have. So, for example, guaranteed we need to make sure we teach this mechanic and that the player must learn this mechanic before they proceed past this part of the level. Okay. Or other restrictions like story-wise, in scenes following this, we're expecting to have met the wizard. So in this level, we need to meet the wizard before the end of the level. Okay. Goals. These are things you want to do, but are not required necessarily. These are kind of themes and stuff like that. So you might say, all right, this part of the game is going to be where our player character has been sent on like a mental spiral. Like they're just they've had a gut punch of an emotional event, and we want to show that through the gameplay as well. So we want to design our level to kind of emphasize this narrative idea of this player having the rug pulled from underneath them. So what we'll do is we'll have them fall a lot in this game level. So we're going to make it very vertical, okay? And the player starts off very high up, and they have to drop down lower and lower and lower very often in this level. So overall, this whole level is arranged mostly vertically, and they have to jump down and then kind of feel the uh, the emotion of falling for a while, maybe sometimes even falling for a while without seeing the bottom. So sometimes having to jump into a pit and not being able to see the bottom, but just falling for a while and then having that anxiety, not knowing when they're going to reach the bottom. All sorts of fun things there that can help get the player to feel what the player character is supposed to be feeling, right? Like they feel sick in their stomach or something like that. Okay, so that might be like a main kind of theme you want to put in that game level. Or maybe you want to show that they're getting stronger, they're improving themselves. Okay, then have them be climbing a mountain, like physically going up in this level. Lots of stuff like that. Or you want them to feel like they're moving fast, so make it very horizontal, make it so that there's not a lot of obstacles to their movement, but they have to do it quickly. Okay, lots of other ideas, right? Then context. You need to know where your game level fits in the larger scheme of things, or where this part of your game level fits in the larger scheme of things. So knowing that the player should know X, Y, Z, and that afterwards they should have an idea of how to use Fireball properly. Okay. Or knowing that there's already been a couple other levels with this vertical theme, so we don't want to have this vertical theme anymore in this level. We want to do something else. Or knowing that the player just had like a really intense battle, so now this level, in contrast, should be a little bit more relaxed. Right. Then you go to your sketch. Uh, a sketch can be actually drawing out game levels, so it can be you drawing out game levels and stuff like that. Uh, this should be quantity over quality. Try out a whole bunch of different ideas. Don't spend too long on each one idea. Make a few different level concepts very quickly, and then try to get past this stage very quickly. A sketch is not enough to call your work done as a game designer. It's not even a significant, let's say, it's not even a significant event where you can take a break after, because a sketch is really supposed to be a midway step to help you get to a gray box. Okay? So please do not spend weeks iterating on a sketch. That's not what a sketch is for. Spend some time making sketches, making different ideas for how you can design your level, and pick one. You cannot playtest a sketch. You cannot produce a sketch. It's not detailed enough. Okay, it may not be to scale. If you're drawing it, it may not be to scale. It doesn't, it's not playable. You can't tell how it feels to play necessarily. So you might want to jump really quickly to the next stage, which is implementation. Okay. uh, but what a sketch is, it doesn't have to just be drawing. This What the sketch will do is it will help you implement. That's the goal here. The sketch will help you explore a bunch of different ideas, and it will help you make a gray box. And when I say sketch, it can be actually a combination of a few different things. It could be a literal sketch on paper, or in Photoshop or something like that. But in addition, it could be written details about what you want to happen. So just writing notes on what's supposed to happen here. It could be uh, dialogue that you're going to put in this point of game. It can be a timeline. It can be references like mood board, things like that that can help you get an idea for what you're doing. Okay, it could be references to another game to say, okay, this is what's gonna go in here, whatever, that kind of stuff. Basically, this is to help you to advance to the next stage. That's the purpose of sketch. It's not really to deliver to like to the team and say, okay, my job is done. This is part of your job. If you're going to design a level, you do this as you're designing a level so that you can make a gray box. You can definitely present this to the team, of course, but it's not like the end of your job. Bubble diagram can help, so you're not actually drawing, like physically drawing stuff. A bubble diagram you can do way faster, and you can change how rooms are connected or areas are connected easily with a bubble diagram. You can do this easily in like a diagramming software. Actually, you can also do this using depending on your game, you could use certain tools designed for creating campaigns in Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, for creating different dungeon layouts and things like that. So there's a few different tools you could use. You don't have to actually sketch the thing. Okay. What matters is that you're able to figure out how areas are connected, what is required in each area, things like that. You can plan where a player meets the NPC, where they have encounters, where they have battles and stuff like that, before you know exactly how it looks. Then we get to the next stage, which is the most important stage, gray box. It's also called white box or block out. This is the longest step, and this is the most important step of level design. You need to be able to play the game. Until you can play the game, your ideas are not helpful. You need to be able to play them, because it is really hard to predict how something's going to play out without actually playing it. So you need to get to this stage as soon as you physically can. So you can see here, this is a 3D game level. It's made with a bunch of, well, gray collision boxes and stuff like that. And there's also some characters placed here, which, so you can see the scale, and also these might be bad guys that are going to be like part of the game level. Okay. It does not need to be pretty. That's why it's called gray box. You're not worrying about the art. It needs to work. It needs to be playable. Do not expect art assets. You should not need art assets. In fact, you should not try to make it look good. If you're missing something, make it yourself as the level designer. Make it yourself. Make it ugly. Don't make it pretty. Don't spend any time making it pretty at all. That's the artist's job afterwards. What you need to do is figure out if it's even worth it first. If you spend time making it pretty, that's time not spent making it actually good, gameplay-wise. And that's investment that you don't need to be putting in. You need to validate that it'll work well and it's fun before you invest the time making it look good. Before you do that. As much as you'll want to make it look good, you need to make sure that you're not wasting your time making it look good, because you're going to end up with problems. All right. Here's an example of a gray box. I'm going to link this to you guys, but I'll also play it for you. Hang on. I will link it here, and I will switch the view so I can play it for you as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's only a minute and a half. Can you guys hear the audio? Yeah, okay. So you can see they did not wait for a climbing animation. They just didn't have one, didn't matter. You missed it? Hey, okay, it's so good. I have to show you again. I have to show you again.
Sure to be safe.
Look at those bushes.
Just stop it! I think he's a terrible driver. Man. Gotta move. Let's keep going. Shit. My pleasure.
So you can easily see the similarities, right? You can see that the geometry is the same, actually, right? Like mostly, right? The main elements are the same, right? It looks prettier in the final version, but you can see that the scale of things is still correct, right? The size and the location of things is still correct. It's still the same, right? It's the same thing underneath. They just didn't make it look pretty yet. So that's what you need to do in your gray box phase. You need to actually basically finish your game in gray box and then make it look good. And you can see where they focused on, making sure that the character movement and the uh, the damage mechanics and things like that worked. That's what they spent their time on. They didn't spend that much time on this level at that time, right? They made sure that the core mechanics were working as best as they could first. That's what you guys need to do as well. So in Graybox, you need to be flexible, open to ideas, open to improvements, open to changing things, scrapping things, changing a bunch of stuff, right? This is the last time, the last opportunity you'll have to actually make big, useful changes. Because as you get further and further and more invested in it, it's going to get exponentially more expensive to fix issues. So you need to, if there's things wrong with your game level, you need to find them out here, not after there's art. Okay, so do not wait until the game's not ready, we can't test it, we can't put it in the hands of other players or stuff like that. No, you need to get it in the hands of players as soon as you physically can, and you need to work your damn hardest to get it to that point as quickly as you can. If you don't, you're going to end up with a problem. This is what will happen if you don't do your gray box, and if you don't test properly in your gray box, then you start adding art to it. You start worrying about how good it looks. You start making it look pretty. Then you will find out that your game level is not fun. Huge sections of it are really lame. It's just not that interesting. You have a huge level, but it's really not that interesting. And it looks nice, but again, it's kind of a waste of time. That's a problem because now you have a choice. You either A, throw away all those many hours your people spent on making that level look good, on putting the sprites in the right places, stuff like that to make it look nice, or B, you just say, well, we already made it, so we'll stick with it. It's mediocre, but we'll keep it anyway. Maybe we'll put like some little band-aid solutions to try and make what is here more fun, but fundamentally you've made a terrible base to build on. Nothing is going to fix it in that once you've created a very bad base, once you've created something that is fundamentally not fun, nothing's going to fix that. That's just like a little easy thing on top. Uh, so you're kind of stuck where you have to make this hard choice. do I throw away existing work, but then, uh, you know, that wastes a lot of time and it feels bad, or do I just stick with it because it's what we have and we don't have any time to fix it, right? That feels bad when you have to make this choice. You will have to make this choice eventually at some point, regardless, but it feels bad when you have to make this choice and you didn't have to. Um, that feels bad. Okay, finally, you've gone through several implementation. You've gone through several different testing rounds. You tried out a few different things. You fixed things with your gray box. Okay, and you are spending more time making it look good. So you create more detailed looks. You place props. You decorate it. You do more lighting, special effects, more animation, stuff like that. Great, nice. Um, it's easier to do this when you have a good gray box. So when you have a good gray box, your artist can look at the gray box and then just fill in the details. They can fill in the blanks. They have a structure. They know what to put where. They can play with that, right? Um, so it gives these blank spaces for us to fill in. If your gray box has some art assets in it, it can sometimes be hard to tell what is final and what is not. So that's a lot of the reason why you might really want it to be a bunch of gray rectangles, because that way it's easy to tell, okay, I see gray rectangle, I know it's not finished. If you use placeholder sprites, then it becomes a little bit harder to tell if this placeholder sprite is supposed to be final or not, right? Is this a placeholder or is this what it's supposed to look like? Not sure. So keep that in mind if you're using sprites as your gray box, because you can, but it becomes hard to tell what's gray box and what's not, and it makes it harder to do the art step. Okay, after you do all that, you're gonna need one more step to polish everything up afterwards. This you should wait to do this until a little bit after you finish the level. So offset that in time after a bunch of other stuff has been done. So do it like this, okay? Gray box level 2, 3, and then 1. Okay? Then final art 2, 3, then 1. Then polish 2, 3, and 1. Or 1, 2, 3. Why did I suggest you do 2, then 3, then 1 for gray box? Or if you can do multiple at the same time, you can do 2 and 3 at the same time. You can do 1 at the same time. You can do all three at the same time if you can. If you have enough members, which you probably do, you can do that, right? But can you guys guess why I recommended that you do things in this order: 2, 3, 1? Yes, level 1 is very important, and over time, you're going to get better at doing your job. Your skills will improve. As you improve as a developer, you may find out that the quality of your work on the third level that you make is way better, and the first level matters a lot. Plus, the mechanics you're going to teach may depend on what you actually are able to finish. That might be the case as well. Um, so there's a few reasons essentially, but level 1 is still very important. And it's actually so important that you should do it later, so that you're as skilled as possible when you start working on that one. And even still, after you've done final art on all of them, 1, 2, and 3, you're still going to find that you've gained more skills, and then you might want to go back for another round of polish on all of the three again. one more pass on all of them to fix them up right before you're done. Okay. Any questions about our lecture so far? All right. So we're gonna do ourselves a tutorial using Tilemaps. What I'm gonna need you guys to do is, if you have your Unity project from the movement lab, when we did like a basic character movement um, with WASD, open that project. Okay, we're gonna work in there. And then I'll need you as well to use the sprites that I've uploaded. So if you got them from class yesterday, that's great. But otherwise, you'll also find them in um, the game design content section. That's where you'll find the assignment 3 details, and you'll find, if you scroll down, sprites.zip. Grab those, and I want you to download those, and I want you to import that folder into your project. So unzip it and drag it into your assets folder. I believe I have already done that. Yes. I've unzipped it and I've dragged it into my assets folder. I've also sliced this, but I will show slicing it again. So I will delete the metadata, and then I'll show you what happens with that afterwards. Okay. So I'm gonna reslice this again. Anyway, this is just what happens when you drag your sprites in here. Okay. Drag the assets in here. You need a sprite sheet or a tile map. Okay, something that's supposed to be like single image that has a bunch of tiles on it. All right. So let's do that. I want you guys to all get set up. If you're on a repo as well, make sure that you check out the appropriate branch and things like that. Pull work if you have worked with other people on the same repo first. All that stuff. So get yourself ready for development. All right, and we'll take a break until then. So let's come back at 1:15. Sorry, not 1:15. 1:25. And then let me know if you have questions. Okay, guys. All right, let's do ourselves a little break. We'll come back then. Okay, let me go ahead and import the files that I asked you guys to download. And I'm going to show you guys what that's all about. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and delete this file, and I'm going to go re-import the damn thing. So let's go find it. Mm, somewhere in my downloads folder. I'm going to go find it. I'm going to unzip the sprites.zip. I'm going to go grab that PNG file, and I'm going to drag it into my project window in the assets, and I've made a folder called sprites in there. So I'm going to drag it in here. Okay, beautiful. There is a PNG file. If I right click, I can hit show and explore, and I can see, okay, there it is, overworld.png, and it's also created a .meta file. The .meta file is Unity's way of tracking what settings you have on it. So the .meta file will track stuff like these settings over here. When I click on this, this is a texture file, it's a PNG file, and then there's a bunch of settings on it. Those settings are what is contained in that little overworld.png.meta file. Actually, if I open this with a notepad, you can see them. Uh, yeah. You'll see stuff like is readable, blah blah blah. A few things. Texture settings, filter mode 1, sprite mode 1, blah blah blah. So let me actually change this stuff. What I need you to do is make sure this is set to sprite. Excuse me. Make sure texture type is set to sprite. Then change from single sprite mode to multiple. Okay. Uh, Now I'm going to go into the, I'm going to hit apply actually, and I'm going to go into the sprite editor. Clicky click. I will hit slice here, and there's a few different settings. I'm going to select grid by cell size. I want it to be 16 by 16. It's important that you set the pivot to the bottom. If you don't, you can fix it afterwards. It's not a big deal. We can fix it either way. Uh, but I'm gonna go ahead and set pivot to bottom, just because I know what I'm gonna do. Yeah, you know what? I'll set it to center because that's the default, and then I'll show you why that's wrong, and then we'll fix it. So we'll do this center first. It depends on what. It actually depends on what you're doing with your sprite sheet, to be honest. So in this case, it's going to be wrong, and I'll show you why. But that'll come later. All right, I will hit slice. Okay. Now it has taken each one of these and turned it into an individual sprite. So this is one image, and it's cut it up into a whole bunch of smaller 16 by 16 images, wherever there is one. It's just gone through and looked for where there is something and then cut that up into a sprite. So all of these are sprites now. And if I hit apply, it's going to take a minute. Okay. I can close that. And now, in the drop down here, it's, yeah. There's literally over 1,000 sprites in here alone. There's over 1,000 individual sprites, individual sub images, each one 16 by 16 pixels wide. Great. Now that I have this, um, I don't want to just drag these in like that. That is not really what I want to do, okay? Even if I can, make something out of that, it's really not very efficient. Not the way we want to go about things. We're going to use Unity's Tilemap feature to do this. So Tilemaps is the name for this technique where we have the one image and we split it into a bunch of sprites. Unity has some features built in to do that better. So this is details about sprite slicing. This stuff is available on Blackboard. Let's talk about Tilemaps. So Tilemaps as a rendering technique, as a game development technique, is when you get game levels that look like this. So classic Pokemon games, a lot of classic games. Originally, using this technique was a solution to technical limitations. When making a game for the Game Boy or the Nintendo Entertainment System or things like that, you have very limited memory, very limited random access memory, okay, and very little just storage space in general, okay. This technique allows us to reuse pieces of memory by saying, okay, there's this one bush, and we just want to draw like 100 of these bushes. So you only store the information for the one bush, but then you draw it 100 times. So this is what we would call it has a very low memory footprint for your computer, and it has a lot of opportunity for with such a low memory footprint for creating a lot of interesting visual detail with layering and stuff like that, drawing them on top of each other. It's also convenient for editing and level design. With the right tools, you can paint these on the world, and it's very fun and convenient to use. So we'll definitely do that. The way it works is kind of like color by numbers. You guys ever done a color by numbers? So that's when you have like this sheet of paper, and then it has a bunch of areas in it, and they're labeled like number one, number two, number three, and then number one you put red, number two you put green, so on. For this, instead, we're just making a color by numbers chart for a computer on a grid, And wherever there's a G, it's going to draw grass. Or wherever there's a number 2, it'll draw grass. Wherever there's a number 1, it'll draw a tree. Wherever there's number 3, it'll draw a bush, so on. That's all we're doing. So it's an array of indexes, of numbers, of ID numbers. So each place in this array is given some number that it's supposed to that is supposed to be corresponding to a piece of tile information. It's going to draw that tile at that location. So the locations of the tiles is actually based on where they are in this array. So you can think of it as being a 2D array. Technically, you can also do this with a one-dimensional array, but I won't get into how. But you can do this with a 1D array, and it might be in Unity. It might be a 1D array. I'm not sure. So at each array position, there's an ID number representing what is supposed to be drawn there, and then all your computer has to do is the renderer will read each of these spots and then decide what to draw. Anyone ever played Minecraft? If you ever played Minecraft, did you ever have to look up block IDs? So in Minecraft, each block is associated with an ID number. 0 is air. 1 is stone. And so they have a whole bunch of stuff. 79 is ice. The format has changed, yes. But fundamentally, voxel-based games, like Minecraft, are the same thing as this tile map thing. They're the same thing, just 3D. Color by numbers, but instead of it being a 2D image, it's a 3D model that that is going to be drawn at some location in a 3D grid, in a 3D array instead of a 2D array. That's the only difference. So in Unity, the specific bits we have to interact with include several components. Remember, guys, we have this idea that in Unity there's game objects that live inside a scene, and inside game objects they contain a bunch of components. So there's several components we'll need to use to attach to a game object. One is the tile map component. This is what contains that array, that 2D array. Then there's a tile map renderer component. This is going to read from that array and draw stuff. We don't really need to mess with this too much, but it will be required if we want to draw stuff. There's also a tilemap collider 2D component, which allows those tiles to become solid. There's a grid component that determines how they are arranged. So you can arrange a rectangular grid or a hexagonal grid and different stuff like that. Okay. And then aside from the components, there's also assets, tile assets, and a tile palette. So a tile asset is the actual data for each tile. So that's the actual data contained at that index. Okay. And that's going to be stuff like, you know, what sprite should be drawn here and so on. You can also make your own custom types of tiles. All right, so there's some instructions here, but I'm just going to show you guys. Okay, so if you're already set up with a 2D project, then this should be convenient. We're going to make a tile map game object. We're going to kind of follow these instructions, but I'm just going to show you. All right, so screw this stuff here with these individual pieces. I'm going to right-click in the scene, and I will create 2D object, tile map, rectangular. So it'll create a grid a game object with a grid component, and then as a child, it'll make a game object with a tile map component and a tile map renderer component. So at this point, I'm gonna actually create a prefab, and I'm gonna start working on the prefab. So I'm actually gonna right click here. I'll rename this. I'll call this world grid. Okay, and then I will drag this down into the assets window, and that will make a prefab. Okay, I don't need these other objects anymore. I may as well get rid of them. Bye bye. Okay, so now I have a prefab called world grid. So you can, in Unity, you can edit a scene or you can edit a prefab. Uh, I'm going to quickly push these changes that I've made so far, just importing this stuff. I'm going to push these changes to the A3 branch. So I imported. Okay, and I will push these changes. They're on the A3 branch. If you want, you can pull them. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this. So I'm going to take. I'm actually going to work inside the prefab. I'm going to double click the prefab. I can click it here or I can click it over here. But I'm actually going to click it over here. Yeah. But you want to go inside the prefab. So there's like a little arrow here that will open the prefab. Or you can double click over here and it will open the prefab on its own without the scene. So this is our prefab. There's nothing in it. But we're going to paint a world in here. To get to being able to paint a world, I'm going to need a couple more pieces, though. So I'm going to actually click... hang on, I'm going to move this over so we have a little bit more space to look at. Then I'm going to open the window, 2D, tile palette. All right, so now I'm going to take this window, I'm going to drag it somewhere reasonable. I think I might put it over here. Okay, so now I have a tile palette window. Now I'm going to make a tile palette asset by clicking here. It says no valid palette. Okay, create palette. I'll call this overworld. Okay, I will hit create. It will ask me where. I can put it here in this sprites folder. I'll select yes. Okay, sure. So this is a tile palette. And then if I drag the tile map texture into this palette that I have selected, overworld, then it will import every single one of those individual 1,000 sprites will be converted into, it'll make a tile asset for each one of them. Not convert, it'll make a tile asset for each one of them. So it's going to ask me where to put them. It says generate tiles into folder. So I'm going to make a new folder for this to go into because it's going to make 1,000 new individual files. So I'm going to make a folder called tiles. I'm going to select that and then hey, select folder. Okay. Now it's going to make 1,073 individual tile assets. We don't need this many, but just to show you, you know, this is how many things go into a game sometimes. All right. So it's gone ahead and, yeah, it's now we have all of these things here. And this tile palette, what it lets us do, I'm in the prefab for world grid. Okay, I will select tile map over here. Uh, this is the tile map component. Um, and I will go and inside the tile palette, I can select a tile. I can use this eyedropper tool. Shortcut is I. And I can kind of pick one of these and I can draw it. Okay, so I can place them on the world. Now that doesn't look quite right. So here's what I need to pay attention to, the scaling. So there's a few different things I can do to fix the scaling. One is I could change the grid component. So I change the size of each cell. Instead of it being 1 meter wide, I can make each cell like 0.1 meter wide or something like that. But that's silly. I want my tiles to be 1 meter wide. I want this piece of grass or this lily pad or whatever, each one of these blocks, I want this to be 1 meter because I think that makes a lot of sense for the game. So how do I fix that? I will go in here in the texture import settings and I will change pixels per unit. These are 16 by 16 pixels wide. If I want 16 pixels to be 1 meter in my game, I need to change this pixels per unit from 100 to 16 because otherwise it's expecting 100 pixels in 1 meter. So I'm going to say 16 pixels in 1 meter. All right. If I hit apply, you'll see now each one takes up 1 whole meter. That one of these squares is 1 meter. Okay, that's pretty good. You'll notice it's all blurry though, right? Like this all looks blurry. We can fix that by changing this setting here from filter mode bilinear to point. Apply. Now it looks nice and crisp for pixel art. So that looks good. The settings you're going to need to do here depend on what art you have. But these, I happen to pick player character and a world that are 16 by 16 pixels in dimension. Okay, and I want them to be scaled reasonably so that 1 meter is one tile. Okay, so now I can start messing with this with confidence. I can paint a little world. Okay, cue the Bob Ross music. Your world. Uh, but if I want to put details on top of the ground here, let's say I want to put a rock here. I want to put a happy little rock right here. That looks really bad. That's kind of ridiculous. So what do I need? I need layers. I'm going to undo that. Okay. And now what I'll do is I will right click inside this world grid. I will right click, create another tile map, rectangular. It won't make another grid component because it's already as a child of a grid component, so it'll just make another one. So this one here has the ground on it, and this one has nothing on it. So I will actually rename these so I don't get confused. Ground. This one's going to be called on ground. This one's empty, so I may as well copy paste it a couple times. So I'll make a few more layers. Default. I will. This one could be above ground or sky. This could be stuff that's going to go in the sky. So now I have several layers. Actually, I'm going to want even one more layer beyond this that will matter when I want obstacles. So I'm going to have a default layer and I'm going to have a collision layer. Okay, so now I have all of these. Let's draw on this rock on the on ground layer. Well, still not great. Something we can do to fix that is we can mess with this order in layer. Yes, but this is not the best way to do it. Let me show you another way. Uh, Instead of just using this order in layer number to change the order things are drawn, we can go ahead and edit sorting layers. So I'm going to go click where it says sorting layer. I'll hit add sorting layer. It'll take me to this other menu, which has a few different drop downs. Sorting layer is the one I want. I will click plus here and I'll make a few. I will make one for each of those that I've declared so far. Round, default is already there. Sky. Actually, that's... And then on ground. Yeah, that's actually all I need, honestly. So I will order these so that the ones on top are drawn first. and so they're on the bottom. So ground, then on ground, then default, then sky. Okay, ground, on ground, default, sky. So ground, I will change this sorting layer to ground. On ground, I will change this sorting layer to on ground. That will stay default. Collision here, that will stay default. And sky, this will go to sky. There we go. I'm not necessarily going to use all these, but we have them. Okay, cool. So now we can do a lot of fun layering stuff here. Um, there's a little pathway here. Okay, I could draw a little pathway on the on-ground layer. Oh, I want another layer again already, so I can put rocks on top of the on-ground layer. Oh man, uh, here I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Let's make a pathway. Uh, And you might notice that this is really fun, but it also takes a long time. That's why if you're doing a gray box, don't don't fuss about making it beautiful like we're going to do, like I'm doing right here. This is going to be a huge waste of time, uh, but it's so fun. Okay, I wonder if I can make water. I wonder if I can make water like a little pond. I don't know if I have the pieces to make this look decent. If I do that, uh, if I put this on the on-ground layer and then I put water on the ground layer, yeah, that doesn't look too bad, right? I'm selecting. You can select multiple tiles at once. I'm doing this so I can select a couple different. Whoops, I want to put that on the on-ground layer. Then let's see. Do I have something that can go here? Yes, that one tiles perfectly. Thank you to whoever made this tile set who made them very nice. They all fit together quite nicely. That fits. That looks good. That looks good. I'm destroying the rocks that I put down, but it's fine. That looks pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad. Now I gotta put some rocks back. I want some. Oh, let's put some rocks in the water. Oh, guys, this is gonna take forever. Uh, I'm never gonna be tired of this. Oh no, we can't put rocks in the water because it's only 2 tiles. Ah, that's too bad. I didn't make it big enough to do that. I can put some rocks on the side over here. Okay. All right. So I've made all these changes, but since I made these changes inside the prefab, uh, they are here in the scene. It's just behind this background thing, which I might change this one to ground, and then set it. You know what? I'll add another layer just for this. I'll add a background layer. Background. Yeah. I will change this to background layer. Okay. So now we have something. Let me see if I can play in here. Where's my player character? Oh, there we are. Okay. Now we got something. So I'm gonna give this a pause. I want you guys to get to this point where you can actually start working on your tile map, and then we're gonna do a few more things here to make it better. Okay, guys? How many of us are at this point, or how many of us need help to get to this point? Do you wanna? We're almost done. I just want to make sure we get to this point though. So let's actually put our player character in here. Hang on a sec. Um, so our character is not quite at the right location. Where's my player? I have this triangle. I have this caps. Oh yeah, there's my player. I'm gonna rename this player, and I'm gonna drag this down here into the assets window. And I don't need this triangle anymore. Actually, you know what I'm going to also do with the player? I'm going to attach the camera to the player. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the camera to the player. So I have made a prefab of the player character, but now I've changed it, and you'll see that the camera attached here, it's got a little green plus sign next to it. Um, so the player prefab doesn't have a camera on it, but in the scene, the player has a camera on it. So there's a discrepancy here, and it'll show up here in the prefab as overrides. It'll say there's some new changes. I can hit apply, and then it'll apply those changes to the prefab. So the prefab will now match. It has a camera in it. Okay, let me center this camera. Since this camera is now a child object of the player, if I just set this to 0, 0, then it will be centered on them. Okay, good. Um, yeah, okay. I'm actually going to commit these changes because I just made all of this tile map stuff. Commit all of that. About 2,000 files because there were about 1,000 tiles, and then each tile also gets a meta file. Okay, that's done. Cool. I can push. Leah just says sprite isn't going to the middle of the grid. Oh yeah, uh, that's because you set the pivot to the bottom. I was gonna show fixing that later. I, I will show that. Uh, but if you want to know ahead of time, you need to go into the grid. Or sorry, you need to go in the tile map and change the tile anchor. Change it to match wherever your pivot point is. So if it's 0 0.5, 0 0.5, that's the middle. If it's 0 0.50, that's the bottom center. So for you, Leija, you're going to want to change that tile anchor for all of your tiles to 0 0.5, 0. Yeah. I just didn't do that yet because I was going to show what is wrong with the way it's done here, and then I was going to fix it after. Anyway, we've got our character. Let's add some collision to the world. So I'm gonna draw something that's supposed to block me. Hang on. Let me draw something that's supposed to block me, and I'm gonna draw it on this collision layer. This tile map that's called collision. So I'll draw that. Maybe I'll also draw. What is that? A park bench? Yeah. Okay. I'll draw this park bench. Park bench right here. Cool. Let's draw a wall. Ooh. Oh, that's not great. Hang on a sec. I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to draw it like that. Yeah. Beautiful. And then, oh gosh. So if I want, hang on, if I want this wall to go down like that, then I'm going to need to copy this section of wall. Yeah. Okay. Then I need to copy that part of the wall. Okay. Then I need the outer edge over here. Cool. Then this outer edge over here. And then on this inner corners, there's another piece. Yeah, right there. There we go. Okay, so all of this is supposed to be collidable. To do that, I'm going to add Tilemap Collider 2D. Tilemap Collider 2D. So all of the things on this layer, now there's a whole box around all of it. Okay. Now for our player character, walking around, we need to add collision for our player character. So I'm going to go ahead and add a collider, capsule collider 2D. I will change its direction to horizontal, and I'm going to make it very small, actually. For this type of character, this top-down type of perspective, I actually want my collider to just be where my feet are. All right, so this collider is going to just be where my feet are. And I'm actually going to move the visual for my player character down a little bit. So yeah, okay, there we go. So now the collider is kind of aligned with where I'm standing. Why did I do that? Because I want to be able to stand here next to this log like this. Based on this perspective, right? So if I playtest this, it's not going to be perfect because I'm going to need one more thing. I'm going to need to add another component. If I playtest this as it is now, um, it'll still allow me to go through stuff. There's one component I need. I will add a rigid body component. So for things that move and have physics on them, you're going to need a rigid body 2D component. So I'll add this rigid body 2D. I will test it now, and then something funny is going to happen. Play it. By default, gravity is a thing. Doesn't make sense for this perspective of game, but Unity doesn't know that's what the perspective is. It just sees, okay, rigid body, do gravity. Now, I can turn gravity off by changing this number from 1 to 0, so that will scale gravity, multiply it by 0. So that will kind of fix it. Sort of. Sort of. But there's another longer term solution that I have for this perspective that's going to be a little bit better. So I'll turn gravity off as a rule. So I'll leave gravity scale on here, but then and I could turn that off, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into project settings. Edit, project settings, physics 2D. You'll notice there's two tabs, physics and physics 2D. That's because Unity has two physics engines running at the exact same time, always. It has a 3D physics engine, that's physics, and it has a 2D physics engine, that's physics 2D. And both of them are running at the same time in parallel, and they do not interact with each other. So please be careful of that. When you see stuff related to physics, you need to be sure if you're dealing with the 2D physics or the 3D physics, um, because they don't interact at all. They're kind of completely independent. So anyway, I want to work with the 2D physics because I'm using rigid body 2D and uh, uh, Tilemap Collider 2D and stuff like that. The 2D ones. So I'm going to go in here, physics 2D. I'll change this gravity property. So the default is this. I will change it to 0. That's all. If you have a side-scrolling platformer game, then you're going to still have gravity here. But you can modify how strong gravity is by changing it here. Just by default on all objects. Okay. So that should be the same as setting gravity scale to 0, but it'll mean that I won't have to do that with every object that I put in the game from now on, right? I do still have this thing where the character is rotating like that, so that's kind of weird. I can fix that pretty easily. I'm still in play mode, so you know when you make changes in play mode, they will not be saved. But I want to show you what happens if I click this option here, freeze rotation. So if I click that option, freeze rotation, then no matter what rotation my character is in, they're not going to change orientation due to the physics collisions. Okay, so I'm just going to go and turn that option on while not in play mode. Freeze rotation on. Good. So now my character shouldn't rotate themselves when bumping into stuff. That's not too bad. Why does it get jittery when you walk against something? Great question. So that has to do with the way that we've coded our movement. I can show a way to make it not jittery as well, but the way our movement is coded is very simple. It says every frame, check our input, and then based on our input, move us to a new position at some distance in that direction. Okay. So what we're saying is this. Here's what's happening. Player is over here. Input code says, okay, based on our input, we press W on the keyboard. Okay, so teleport our player up here. Then physics updates because they have independent loops. Do you guys remember I told you about game loops and I told you that there's kind of multiple game loops that running at the same time? The physics game loop is at 50 hertz consistently. The other game loop, just the regular update, the stuff in update, is something around 60 hertz. They're independent. So sometimes, they happen at different times. Okay, so we have teleported after update. We have teleported our character inside this log. Then when physics updates, it says, okay, they're intersecting. We need to fix that. So it will teleport our player out of it. And we get to see that. We'll see that. And then next frame, we're still pushing up towards the log, so we'll teleport into it. And then physics will say, no, come out. And then next frame, we teleport in, and then physics says, no, come out. That's what the jittering is. So there is a solution to that. I don't think it's necessarily really better to do it in this way. Well, maybe it is. But I will show you guys a very simple solution. Let's go edit this character controller script. Let's now use the physics system. We never had this rigid body 2D component before. Now we have added it to the player character. That rigid body 2D component is responsible for actually making this character simulated in the 2D physics system. So we can use that rigid body to ask it to move. So we'll ask the rigid body to move instead of just teleporting the whole thing. So there's a couple ways to do that. I will show one of the simplest ways. I will add a private rigid body 2D variable here. Call it RB, whatever. And then I will add a start function. Void start. So this is a very specific named method called start that returns void. Um, and Unity will see this and it will call this on the first frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, the contents of this function to assign this variable, RB. So I'll do RB equals get component rigid body with these angle brackets. So this line of code says assign this variable here whatever comes out of calling this function, get component rigid body. If you look up this function, this is a function of component that will search inside the same game object. So we're calling it from character control. There's this component that we've created, character control, that we've attached to our player character. When we call this function get component, it will search the same game object for other components, and it will return with the one that matches the type that was put in there in the angle brackets, rigid body 2D. So it will return with a component that matches this type, rigid body 2D. There is one on this same game object as character control, so it will give me a reference to this thing. So this is a way of allowing character control script to access and mess with this rigid body 2D component. Okay, so now we have access to that component. We can do stuff with it. In update, instead of changing my transform component, I'm going to call a function that exists on rigid body 2D, uh, rb.move position. So this attempts to get our game object to move to that position, but obeying the laws of physics. So I'm just going to paste the code here. This is our new position that we want to move to. I'm just going to put it inside here. So instead of saying transform.position equals, we're going to ask the rigid body to move to this position. And this function, if you look it up, it will check along the way if it's going to collide with something along the way. So where would you find this stuff? I know this stuff, but that's just because I've seen uh, Unity documentation. Rigid body dot move position. Move towards position. Okay. And then there's also get component, which we used. We used get components. Component.get component is what we used, actually. Examples here, so on. All right, so I've just swapped out that movement code for rb.movePosition. All right, cool. Let me test this. All right, so we're not jittering into the wall anymore. Our speed has changed actually a little bit. Uh, there is a reason for this, but I won't quite get into it right now. Let's modify this. Woo! So it doesn't do the jittering, but it is a little inconsistent still. Um, so that also has to do with the fact that we're doing this in update, which is not the same loop as the physics. Personally, I actually liked the jittering. I thought it gave at least some feedback that you were trying to move in that direction, but you know, just showing that there's other things to do, other ways to do things. Okay, cool. We can improve things again further afterwards. Uh, all right, another thing. If we have some objects, hang on. Let me me commit again. Better commit my work here. Did I save my prefab for my player? No, I made changes to my player character, but I didn't apply those changes. I better apply those prefab changes. Apply, and my world. Apply. So I made changes, but I need to apply them to the prefab so they become prefab changes, not scene changes. All right, I will commit that. Perfect. Push that. Okay, I'm gonna go back into the world. Click into here, or you know what? I'll just click it down here. All right. I want to add some objects that you can walk through. So I'm gonna go into this default layer, and I'm gonna go find an object. Yes, this little potted plant. I will put a little potted plant on the ground here, and maybe this other potted plant. Yes. Two potted plants will go there. Maybe another happy little potted plant will go over here. Beautiful. So I have just made changes to this world grid prefab. Uh, Check it out. Look at Git. You'll see it shows I only made changes to the prefab. Isn't that interesting? So I can those changes are to the prefab, but I can see them, the changes in the scene. Okay, cool. But what if I just paint it directly in the scene over here? What if I just do this? Let's go add. Uh, let's see. Let's add a happy little sack of flour. All right. So I'm on the default layer over here in world grid. I will add sack of flour. Great. Now let me look at what has changed. In GitHub Desktop, oh, I didn't save it. Oh yeah, hang on. Save. Now it says, I don't know. It says a bunch of stuff. I can commit that. Okay. Let me add another sack of flour. Oh, I need to save again. Uh, Again, a whole bunch of stuff just changed, right? So I don't know if you guys can tell, but if I added a sack of flour to the scene and my team member, one of you guys, went ahead and added a happy little flower to the scene, we would have a merge conflict. And that would not be fun. Just doing that one little thing, then you'd have a merge conflict. It would be hard to figure out what is what, because, like, what are you going to do? You're going to go through all of this stuff to figure out what is going on? No. However, if I apply these changes to the prefab, now these exist as changes to the prefab, not to the scene. So then I save the scene, okay? Now, uh, hopefully, actually I don't know what these scene changes are here. I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. Let me try discard this change and see what happens. I will undo that change. I will see what happens here. Okay, reload. What did that do? Oh, some of the objects. Okay, some of the objects went away. Let's go and make the changes in the prefab. Apply. There we go. Right? So this is not the right way to go. We need to make changes in the prefab. Right? This is not, it's not convenient. All right, so let me go. No, yeah, actually, I will apply these overrides. I will commit that. I'll save the scene. I'll commit that, but then I'll stop making changes in the scene and start making them in the prefab. Okay. Push that. Great. Okay. If I go in here and I make my changes in here, when I come back out, they are here in the scene, and on GitHub Desktop, there are no changes to the scene file. Now it's just changes to worldgrid.prefab. So what this means is now each person working on the game could have their own prefab. I could make another one of these. Right? I could make another separate prefab. Tile map, rectangular, right? And this could be someone else's scene. I could duplicate this. I could have this kind of same structure: ground, on ground, default, collision, sky. Right? I can copy the same structure. Ground, on ground, default, default, collision, sky. I'll make another prefab out of that. And then somebody else could be working on this other prefab. In fact, I could take this and I could take it even further. If I edit this a little bit, let's go edit this a little bit. I'll go draw some grass here. Okay. Some grass. Erase that grass. Okay, cool. I could take this now and drag it down again the second time. And it'll ask me, do I want to make a new original prefab or a variant of the existing prefab grid? I will make a prefab variant. So now it's like inheritance. This grid variant is a child of the parent prefab grid, which is interesting because if I make changes to this parent, it will make changes. It can make changes to this child. Notice that these are all set to default, the sorting layer. I want to fix that. But if I, what if I fix it in the parent object? Let's fix it in the parent object. The parent prefab. Ground, on ground, default. That'll be default. This will be sky. Okay. Save that. If I go out of here, I look at the grid variant, the child prefab, I can see that it actually changed these. Do you see that? It changed these. So now you have like this kind of parent object that everyone could have one of these. And they could make their own sub prefabs, and then every person working on your scene, working on the same game, in the one scene, can have their own prefab that they're working on instead. So they're making changes to the prefab. So you place the prefabs first, because placing the prefab counts as a change to the scene. Then you have all of these areas blocked out as prefabs, and everyone edits the existing prefabs to edit what's going on in their particular zone that they're working on. So workflow-wise, That's what I'm strongly, highly recommending so you avoid a lot of headache. Please do that. Please take advantage of this system. Oh, I forgot to save it. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Now if I play this, there's some little things that I could nitpick about. Okay? There's a little nitpick that I can have. If I walk over here to this like flower pot, you see how I'm like always on top of it? I don't want that. Here's what I actually want to happen. I want to be behind it when I'm here, and then I want to be in front of it when I'm here. Do you guys see that? I can't fix that using sorting layers. There's no way to fix that just using these sorting layers, right? Because it's not always the same. Sometimes I want it to be behind, sometimes I want it to be in front. There is a way to fix this. Uh, for that, I will go and I need to go find the renderer settings. So one way you can find it is go to project settings, go find graphics, and then there'll be a thing here, Universal RP. Then you can click this. You'll find it in assets, settings, something like that. Then find this renderer object. But anyway, this will be able to take you there. If you click this, it'll take you to this universal render pipeline asset, and then this is connected to a renderer 2D. Click that. It's the renderer that you need. So find this thing, then change this transparency sort mode from default to custom axis. And that's it. Now, when you have your player, well, we need a couple more things. Okay. I need to go find my character sprite. I will change this sprite sort point from center to pivot. Save that. Apply that override. Okay. Then in my world, let me apply those overrides. Let me go into the prefab. Okay. The default layer is the one that has all this stuff. I will change this mode from chunk to individual. So that default layer is the layer with all these guys on it. Okay, from chunk to individual. Okay, now let me move my player character. Still not quite what I need. Let's see. Oh, I'm ordering layer 1. I don't want that. I will change it to be the same order in layer as the default stuff. I need it to be the same order in layer. Okay, let's see what I got here. Okay, it's kind of doing something. It's kind of working. Look at this. So I'm behind, and then when I get to this point, now I'm in front. Let's try with this other potted plant. Behind, in front. Behind, in front. Behind, in front. It's almost right. But I want to change another thing. So I want to be behind up to about this point, and then I want to be in front. So the issue is these are being sorted based on the center, and my player character is being sorted based on the bottom of his feet. So I just want to make these consistent. So for this flower pot, I will go and change that. To do that, I'm going to have to go into the sprites, go find this overworld thing, go back to the sprite editor, and then I'm going to have to reslice this. But instead of setting center for pivot, I will select bottom. Slice. Okay. Oh, wait. No. No, no, no. Cell size. Okay, I wanted 16 by 16. Oh, no. There we go. Then hit apply. Now, finally, hopefully, I shouldn't have to touch it again. So this should update the existing tiles. Hopefully. So now the pivot should be bottom center for all of these individual sprites. Save that. Okay. Now let's try this out with our player character. I'm behind, behind, behind. In front. There we go. So when we changed that custom sorting axis, that meant that it chooses when to draw these things in order based on their Y position. So objects with a higher Y position are drawn first, and objects with a lower Y position are drawn after, right? So this Y position is -3. Y position of this thing is probably actually -3. Um, this one is -2.9. But then when I get to -3, oh no, a little further. -3.3. Okay, now it's a little lower. Now I'm actually drawn here. Cool, cool. So that's quite helpful. There's another slight issue. The collision is all off by a half now. We Everything is actually off by a half. If you look at trying to edit this again, look at what happened to the tile map, to the tile palette. Now, what the heck? Right now, I've selected down here to draw a grass. It's kind of weird, right? Let's put some rocks on the grass here. I'll go into this one, then it's off by a half, right? See that? It's off by a half. Put the on-ground layer. Okay, let's put some rocks here. We can fix this. So we actually need to edit the tile palette. So we're going to go in the tile palette. So that'll fix it being off down here in the tile palette. And then we need to fix the tile maps up here. So in the tile palette, we're going to find that tile palette asset, right? That I put mine here. It's a prefab that is the same as this tile palette right here. Okay, so you see they're all off by a half. I'm going to go to this tile map component here, and it'll change tile anchor from 0.5, 0.5 to 0.5, 0. Now it lines up perfectly. If I save this, now you'll see in the tile palette window, it's been fixed there. So now, not so confusing. Actually, what's interesting is you can edit these tile palettes, so you can kind of make little bits of something. If you have something you're gonna make a lot of, or something you're gonna want to paint often, you can make little custom configurations. So let's say I want to build like a little pond. I might do something like I can select all of this here. I will click toggle this little crayon icon, and now I can edit the tile palette. So I'm going to go find a spot over here and draw this. And I'm going to go and actually create a little lake inside my tile palette. I'm going to go find some more pieces here so I can do more editing. Okay. Let's make a little lake. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I lost some of the pieces I needed. Hang on. I'm using middle mouse button to pan, by the way. Okay. So while I'm editing, let's see. Oh, I gotta do some thinking here. Okay, this one goes here and here. There we go. Then this is water. Then this is the interior. Then this is, whoops. This goes up here and there. And I can erase that. Okay, cool. and I can erase this. So I have actually edited my tile palette. Turn off editing. Now it's actually here. And so if I want to paint this for some reason often, I can do that. Like if you have a certain building you've made or something like that, now you have this little thing that you can copy paste wherever you want easily. Just boom, right? Uh, Darren says if you make a boundary out of tiles, does bucket fill work? I think it just does like a box. Flood fill with active brush. Let me see. Let's find out. Okay. Yeah, it's oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it does it. There you go. You can just do flick. There, it flood filled it. Beautiful. You can also sample from what you've already drawn. So I have the eyedropper tool. I can select like this whole line of stuff, and I can draw that here. Cool. Anyway, we fixed it. We fixed the weird offset in the tile palette, but we actually didn't fix it in the scene itself, or in the when actually painting on these things. So let's fix that as well. I'm actually going to go into the parent prefab of this grid here. It's a variant of grid. So I'm going to go open grid. See all of these, I'm going to change the tile anchor in the tile map to 0.50 as well. I can just shift click to select all of these. 0. Cool. That'll affect the child grid variant, this thing here. So this one is also lined up correctly now. So yeah, so this is lined up correctly. What isn't lined up correctly is this other one, because this one isn't a child prefab of grid, so it doesn't get affected by the changes I made to grid. So in general, I would actually want all of these to be child prefabs of grid, but we didn't know about that beforehand. Now we do. Anyway, that's no big deal. I can fix it right now. I'm going to world grid over here. I will go into the prefab. I will select all of these things. I'll change this to 0. Now everything lines up perfectly. Except for the collision, which we can also fix. So the collision, you can offset that by just changing this. Uh, yeah, there's a little offset button. There's a little offset parameter here. 0.5. There we go. That's what I need. And I'll apply that change. Cool. Neat. Now my player character is very slow. Hang on. Change the speed. They're also inconsistent, and that's because the movement is inconsistent, and that's because of a couple things. One is the difference in the frame rates between the fixed update that is the physics update and the regular update, which is a variable frame rate. I don't really want to get into that right now, but one quick way to fix it is you can change slightly the way that this code works. Instead of multiplying the speed by delta time, you could just create a speed and create a velocity vector out of it. Um, so your velocity will be something like this. Hang on, vector. Hang on. And then there's another thing you can change, rb.velocity. It takes a vector 2, so you can assign it some velocity. I'm going to create a velocity based on new vector 2, something like this. Except instead of multiplying by delta time, it's just going to be input times speed. It's going to do the multiplying velocity by delta time on its own. Um, the physics system is going to do that on its own. And it has its own delta time. There's actually two delta times. There's delta time, which is what I've been using here. But when you're doing physics, you actually don't want to use this delta time variable. You want to use a fixed delta time variable, time dot fixed delta time. So that's an important consideration. You also don't want that to be in update. There's two updates. There's update and there's fixed update. Yeah. Uh, so don't worry about that. Just do this velocity thing. Then when physics gets around to it, it will use this velocity that you've given it. Joshua asks, does this fix the diagonal thing? No, it does not. The diagonal thing is still going to be an issue for now. Yeah, no, the rigid body does not compensate for that. No, that's what I'm saying. It's still going to be an issue. We are still going to move like 40% faster on the diagonal. But at least our velocity is a little bit more consistent now. And we can be behind potted plant and in front of potted plant. Amazing. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Oh, I might have screwed up here. Oh. Whoopsie. I might have messed that up. Apply. Oh, okay. You do not want angular velocity. No. No, no, no. The fix is really easy. You just need to normalize your vector. Okay, let's see. What else is going on here? What is this? What is with this log? What layer is that log on? Is that on ground? No. That's default layer? No. That's collision layer? Oh, yeah, okay. It's on collision layer. Ah, okay. Since it's on the collision layer is set to chunk. It's not sorting properly. I'd have to change this to individual for things that are on the collision layer to also uh, be consistent with the drawing in front and behind. Yeah. Okay. Pretty neat. Okay, so that's all the time we have for now. Hopefully now we have a beautiful start to making a beautiful game. Uh, though, if you're doing level design, don't make it look pretty like this. Not even like this. I know this isn't the most pretty, but don't even make it look like this. Uh, this will be on GitHub for reference. Like, I am pushing this as I go along. I will push all of this that I just did just now. Finished lesson 8. And tile maps. So I'll commit all that. Wait, did I save everything? Control Shift S. No, sorry, just Control S. Then I want to apply all my prefab changes. Apply, applied. Okay, cool. Then I will. Because that's something I forgot to do. Commit that. Now push it. Great. Yeah, I should really be editing inside these prefabs, not in the scene. Um, it's fine because I'm the only one here, but you should be clicking into your prefab to make changes to your objects. Okay? Make sure you make all of your team members who are working on the same scene Make sure you do this with them so they're working on prefabs. They're making changes to prefabs, not to scenes. Please. It will save you so much pain. If I want to change the speed variable here, I'm not going to do it here. I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to go into player, the prefab, then I can change it. Now it's only changed player prefab. You, if everyone is working on a different scene, then it's not required to do that. I mean, to avoid merge conflict, because you're not going to have merge conflicts in a scene if nobody's touching each other's scenes. But if you're going to connect them together, you'll still need to have some way of loading the scenes on together. But I know you and I have talked about that already. Um, it's also not needed if you have really good communication with your team members and you make sure you're always working on it one at a time. But you don't want to force people to have to work on things one at a time because it'll slow down your whole project. It'll make it like a lot harder for people to, for it to be that people can conveniently hop on and work on things whenever they want. You want to make it easier for people to work together. So yeah, it sucks. So you need to. It's your job to organize yourself so that you can work at the same time. All right, I'll save that. Did I commit everything? Yes, I did. I'll push it. You guys can find it on the A3 branch. Actually, at this point, I've done enough for assignment 3, kind of. We kind of have 2 areas here. We kind of have like some areas. So I could go ahead and actually merge this back into main um, anytime I want. But yeah, thank you very much, folks. Any other questions? Any other issues or anything like that? Let me know. All right, take care, guys. I will stop the recording here and I'll see you next week. Good luck with your GDDs and building out your the next phase of your GDD assignment as well, which is that ludonarrative blueprint. Bye now.